Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the round table. My name is Ben Hedges, and here in the studio I have Holly Kellum. Welcome, Holly.
Good to be here, Ben.
Holly is from the show Newspeak, and we also have our resident China expert, David Zhang from China Insider. Welcome, David.
Thanks for having me.
So in this video, we are going to be talking about TikTok, and there is currently a law in the US where TikTok is going to get banned in 4 months. I have the date. January 19th of 2025. So TikTok will get banned on January 19th, 2025, unless they find a US buyer to buy the company. Isn't that right, Holly?
Yeah, so, Trump tried to do this through executive action back when he was in office, and then, TikTok held it up in court long enough for basically, the election to happen. He was out of power, and then the Biden DOJ basically decided they weren't going to defend the lawsuit, and they dropped it. But after that, it was
an act of Congress, wasn't it?
Yeah, so a bill got through Congress. Now, there was a first iteration that died, and then, some very dedicated lawmakers worked in, I would say, a pretty top secret fashion to, get support for another bill, which ended up passing. Biden signed it the same day. This was in April. And that gave TikTok 270 days for ByteDance. So ByteDance is owned by, it's a Chinese company, and this is the issue. Right. It was banned on national security grounds. So, they had 270 days to sell it to an American company or another company that is not owned by what the U.S. considers an adversary. Right. So the reason this, and the legislation didn't just cover TikTok, it covered all apps that were owned by adversarial countries.
So, David, what's happening then? Can ByteDance sell it, or is the Chinese regime, the Chinese government, going to block that sale?
I think ultimately it has to be sold if it wants the idea of TikTok to still exist. Okay. But the argument I find, because Holly mentioned this was on the national security side of things, but they're now arguing on the freedom of speech side of things, right? Okay. In court. So in the appeal court this week, or last week, they were arguing that, which I find hilarious because even TikTok, the Chinese version, is heavily censored in China. So any company that has data that is in the social media space in China, ByteDance included, all of their data has to, if the Chinese government wanted it, can be sent to the Chinese government. So meaning that until the day that TikTok, because they always mention in their advertisements, arguments, even hearing, they say that TikTok is as American as any other social media company. That's not true until TikTok is completely severed from its relationship with the parent company, ByteDance. Okay. So for now, I think the idea is that I think the ban will go through eventually. Okay.
Yeah, because will that happen? Will the Chinese regime allow it to be sold?
Right. So the thing that they don't want it to be sold is because there is an algorithm, right? Okay. So the TikTok algorithm it's controlled back in China by Beijing, and it essentially wants to manipulate the content that we see on TikTok. So if they sell that, it means that, well, really, I don't know if the question is going to be, are they going to sell off the algorithm of TikTok with it? Is that even possible? I think Beijing doesn't want that to be revealed to an American social media company. But I think, so ultimately, I think they would choose to have it banned instead.
Couldn't they just sell it, just sell the company logo, name, and the existing user base, and then some new company comes and builds an app and connects all the existing users to it and uses the same branding?
So you mentioned something really interesting, which is if you really think about if all they wanted was to preserve TikTok as the brand, any American company can take over, start their new little algorithm thing, right, and can keep it going. Yeah. But it seems like the Chinese government is very against that idea. So it almost seems like they're hiding something. They're saying that it's not really TikTok that we're putting our importance on. It's actually the algorithm. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So what exactly have they been saying in the court case?
Yeah, well, they're arguing this is a free speech issue, not just for the users, but also, the people that have the right to read what's on TikTok. Okay. And they're basically saying, if you force a sale, which I think is interesting because this isn't about, okay, so it could be banned, but it also could, right now the terms are you either sell it or it's banned, right? Yeah. But they're arguing that if it's banned, this would infringe on the free speech rights of Americans, both users and people that want to.
I have a quote from TikTok's lawyer here. It says, who said this in court, said, "This law imposes extraordinary street speech prohibition based on indeterminate future risks.
Yeah, and I think TikTok is in a really tight place, not just because the Chinese government has said that, you can't sell the algorithm, that's our IP, but also because, Congress has now passed this. So what TikTok is arguing is that a law that Congress passed is unconstitutional.
Right.
And that's a much higher bar than, say, fighting Trump's executive action, which is what they were doing before. So I do think
because they would be saying that the executive action was against the law.
Right.
But this is actually a step up. This is a law that they have to argue is against the Constitution, which is the highest law in the land, right? So actually that's pretty difficult.
Yeah, and a lot of people are saying that it will probably go up to the Supreme Court. Now, whether the Supreme Court will actually take this case up remains to be seen. They don't have that much time left. January 19th, 2025 is the deadline. Biden could extend that for 90, or whoever's in power could extend that for 90 days if they feel like a sale is, imminent. But yeah, basically they're under the gun.
Now, interestingly, there is actually precedent for this ban because in 2020, a Chinese company that owned the app Grindr, which is a dating app, they were forced to sell it for $608 million. And it was because of national security concerns. So Grindr was owned by this company, Beijing Kunlun Tech company, and it is a dating app for people who are not a regular dating app, let's just say. I'll leave it at that. And but the security concern was due to fear of blackmail.
Right.
And actually, it was funny in the Financial Times' article about this. It said Grindr users may include U.S. officials and military personnel. So I mean, it even though it's kind of amusing, it is kind of quite a serious issue when you think that U.S. people are going on this dating app. Yeah. Maybe they're having affairs through it. Who knows? And it's owned by China, and China has access to all their information. They could blackmail people who have security clearances and all that kind of stuff.
Which I think one of the important aspects of TikTok is what you mentioned, is it doesn't just have a particular set of number of people's data, it actually has every user's data available to them. And now this include anything from personal information to what their hobbies are like, what type of videos they can enjoy on TikTok. TikTok itself, if you really think about it, it's much bigger than a news organization. It's much bigger than a platform. It has essentially become, in my view, a type of weaponization of especially young kids, and using that to influence what type of content they like, what type of content they see. And I really, if we're talking just about more than the national security side of things, I think there's also an aspect which is TikTok will also still be here during the November election, right? The 2024 presidential election. TikTok will still play a main role. So to me, I hold a very negative view about TikTok. And I think it's already a risk that they're still available to be used during the 2024 presidential election, because we've had documented evidence to say that they block certain type of contents. They do not basically promote certain types of topics, such as China, the Hong Kong protest. And so in that turn, how do we know that this platform will not do anything during the presidential election, promote a certain candidate, promote one side or the other? So I think these are already some of the risks.
Right. Yeah, I think that's really a great point. And I think that's a good place to leave it, guys. So what do you think? Do you think we should save TikTok, or do you think the ban is justified? What are the risks? Let us know in the comments below. And a big thank you to both of our guests today, David Zhang from China Insider and also Holly Kellum from Newspeak. I'll put their channel icons on screen now. You can check them out and do subscribe to this channel if you're new. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.